I think when it's pain involved, I think transparency builds trust. I think unprocessed pain builds confusion. That's when you get the pastors
Ooh,
who weaponize the word instead of teaching the
my
word.
God.
Ooh,
Mm.
And there's a level of accountability as a leader that you have to say, you know what, let me work on this. Let me get some help so that when I come back to my congregation, I'm able to say, yes, for a season, for 3 months or 4 months, I have been battling with this, but I did the work.
Welcome to the Truth Revealed podcast, where we host conversations that relate, reveal truth, and ultimately lead to reconciliation. I am one of your three co-hosts, Shanita Street, and we also have Miss Holly Harris
What's up, y'all?
and Latricia, aka Sweet Peak.
Hello, everyone.
And we also have two special guests
Yeah.
joining us for this show. And I'd like to just give a brief introduction of them and tell you how wonderful and significant they are to the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
First, we have Pastor Kimberly B. Roseboro. Pastor Kimberly B. Roseboro has served as an ordained minister for 22 years. In 2019, she submitted to leadership under Dr. Kimberly D. Moore of Emmanuel Missionary Baptist Church. Pastor Kim plays a vital role in music ministry, evangelism, ministerial staff development, youth ministry, couples ministry, an adjutant, and also has an extensive background in education. She and her husband, Charles E. Roseboro, co-founded Naked Truth, an organization aimed at providing total freedom and holistic restoration to marriages. In January of 2025, Pastor Kim assumed the mantle from her father and was appointed interim pastor of the St. Paul Full Gospel Baptist Church, where she was later installed as pastor April of this year. She is utilizing her spiritual influence and gifts to reimagine the church as a recognized place of restoration, while also ensuring that everyone understands their significance in the body of Christ. Find her feet moving swiftly from the floor on any given Sunday,
Right.
or leading the congregation in random moments of praise and worship.
Amen.
So, Miss
Yeah.
Pastor Kimberly
Yay.
Roseboro,
Yay.
So good to be here.
thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Next, we have Dr. Antonio Thomas, the lead pastor and co-founder of Christ Life Louisville. I have to say that right. It's not Louisville, Louisville. He is known for his straightforward, engaging, and relatable teaching style, blending biblical truth with real-life insight and a quick-witted sense of humor. He is an ordained minister with over 20 years of experience in education, foster care, residential youth services, and community leadership. His pastoral heart has been shaped while walking closely with individuals through trauma, transition, and restoration. Dr. Thomas holds a bachelor's of science in psychology, a master's of business administration, a master of social work, and a doctorate in clinical counseling. He is head of MHG Preparatory Academy and is married to Pastor Sharon Rochelle Thomas, who co-leads Christ Life Louisville. Welcome.
Wow.
thank you.
Yeah. Woo.
We have some
Welcome.
dynamic people with us
Yes.
today.
My Lord.
So I'm
Thank
really
you.
Thanks.
excited. And again, we're so thankful for you joining the show. So again,
Absolutely.
welcome to Truth Reveal podcast.
Welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank
you.
So thank you everyone for joining and watching this episode. We have been seeing in the news recently, well, there was a pastor who announced his separation from the ministry, which we'll talk a little bit more later. But we've also seen several cases over the years of pastors committing suicide. There's been a lot of murder suicide situations, just in general, mental health challenges.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about what that looks like in the mental health community for those who serve in ministry, particularly pastors.
Yes.
So for both of you, and it doesn't matter which of you go first, if you could tell us, I read a little bit about your background in ministry, but tell us how long you have actually been pastoring.
You want to go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Dr. Thomas? Okay. Well, I was engaged to St. Paul Full Gospel Baptist Church for 15 months. And I have been legally married to them for 3 months.
That's a nice way to put it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Thomas?
So I am a PK. I grew up in the church. My parents pastored for 30 years. They stepped down about a year ago, and then me and my wife launched on April 19th of this year. So I've been recently pastoring, but yes, I have.
So both of you are fresh to the pastoral road, but have been serving in ministry for a significant amount of time, and also are both PKs.
Absolutely.
So you haven't been able to get away from it, pretty much.
No, it was something that I never wanted to do, but the Lord,
imagine,
set me there.
Wow.
I'm like you, Dr. Thomas. This is a God move because Kim was comfortable with just serving and not being in leadership. So I was good, and I've seen the best of both worlds. So I kind of want to just stay in the background. But this is the Lord's doing, and it's marvelous.
Absolutely.
Congratulations to you both on your newer roles, pastoring, because I know it's not easy, but you're doing it. So if you're comfortable with sharing, tell us about a time when you experienced your own emotional or mental health struggle, and how did you navigate that season while also leading and caring for people in your congregation who were facing their own struggles? And we'll go with you first, Dr. Thomas.
I truly believe that every leader has their moment where they have weights that are heavy. And you find yourself in trying to carry everything and trying to do everything for everybody and be everybody's person. And one thing the Lord definitely taught me in that season of me trying to be everything for everybody, that I can help people carry their burdens, but I can never help people carry their personal identities. I can be there for them. I can do things for them. And I understand now that everyone has their own identity, and I have to help them walk through it, but I have to carry my own. And so in that, I struggle with just trying to help everybody be what they need to be, and just having anxiety when I see people not living up to their full potential. And that's really what God gave me, is that I can help people carry the burden and help them move past it, but I cannot carry people's identity. So I have to be able, only Jesus can do that. So I have to allow Jesus to be that source for me. So my struggle and my mental health during that season in my life, we run businesses, we have all of these things, and just really having anxiety where I was not sleeping. I was not doing what I needed to do. And it was like, is this anxiety? And I went to school for this, so I know it on the clinical side and on the spiritual side. And so I understood it to be what it was, and I knew that I needed to allow God to settle me. So that's when I had to really just focus on what he was doing in my life. And I think as leaders, not even as pastors, just leaders, period. If you're leading anything, you will always try to carry that burden or that thing for those people. But you have to understand that everybody has to step up to who they are and know their identity in God. And so I think when I gave that to him, I could able to sleep more and find that place in him. And also my personal story, I'm a therapist. I went to school for that. And so that's what I did. And I went to school for that because I was a PK, and I saw that the church really was struggling with a lot of mental illness. So me, myself, I had my own therapist, and she walked me through through life situations. And, because I'm in the work, which is a funny story, and I always tell, I had to go out of the country to find a therapist because I wanted to have somebody that wasn't in the field with me, personally in America. So I actually went and found a lady that was out of the country, and she helped me walk through. And I remember one time, and I'll be very quick with this. I remember one time we had a session, and just like we're having this Zoom, that's the way we talk, because she was in Italy, and I'm here. And she was a believer as well. And one day she said, I'm going to walk you through this garden, and I'm going to put you in this garden because I want you to understand that you are not responsible for other people. You're responsible for yourself. And I saw this gate open up, and the only thing I could visualize as we're walking through this garden, I felt the burn of all the stuff that was attached to me. I felt it just as ashes flow out of this garden. And then I saw the door shut. And then before me was this beautiful arrangement of flowers and all of these things. And I was able to run through it. And I think that was the moment for me. And I always tell people, it's like I was just, I got to the gate, and she said, now I'm gonna walk you through the gate. And she was very truly dear to my heart. She actually passed away last year. But she was someone who actually helped me walk through that, and really understand that I'm not to take on everyone's emotions, and actually deal with who God has called me to be, and not just take it by faith. And I always tell people to walk by faith and not just solely by your emotions. Your emotions are important, and they will tell you things, but you must walk in faith. And that's me.
Wow.
What about you, Pastor Kim?
Well, I think Dr. Thomas spoke for me as well. I think I have to come from a different perspective because, again, my emotional and mental health looks a little different because when I took over the pastoralship at St. Paul, I was number 4. So in a short amount of time. And the story is if I could just be a little honest for a little bit, it dealt my emotional and my mental state was in a different place because I had to literally walk through a door that had been walked through so many different times, and then I had to come in not as Kim, the founder's daughter, but as Kim, as the leader in that moment. And for me, preaching through um, times where there was no one there, preaching through heartache, preaching through pain, taught me how to really rely totally on the Father. And when people say, "I know Jesus," sometimes they just saying it just because it sounds cliches, but for me, I had to literally walk through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil because I knew the rod and the staff was walking with me. And that those 15 months of going through the valley, going through the emotional roller coasters of trying to encourage people, trying to rebuild ministry, trying to save face when in actuality you were just as hurt as everybody else. And so preaching through pain can be extremely difficult. But when you have a relationship with the Father, He will never leave you, nor will He forsake you. And I am just excited because early on, I learned how to not carry the weight of the people. It's hard, it's hard. But when I say I made a conscious decision that every time I left 602, I left 602 there. I did not bring 602 to my house, only because I have a child with special needs and I could not mix those two together. Sounds crazy, but I had to make a conscious decision not to bring the burdens and the problems to my house because it wasn't fair. Not only was it not fair to my child, but it wasn't fair to my husband, and it wasn't fair to me because I didn't cause it.
Wow.
So my emotional, and I don't want to go into the boundaries, but that was a part of my boundary. And that was a part of me protecting Kim and me protecting my husband and me protecting my child, so that I could be a healthy mom and I could be a healthy wife. And most of all, I could be a healthy educator because not only was I leading and pastoring, I'm pastoring at 602, but I'm also an educator. And so how I look trying to be in the classroom and talking to these children, and they looking at me like, what's wrong with you, Miss Roseboro? Because I got all the weight and I can't carry the weight because that's not my burden. I can't do that. So yeah, so that's kind of my small story as far as the emotional and the mental health um, dealing with Kim.
Yeah. Wow.
Sweet Holly, did you all have anything?
I wanted to unless Sweet had something.
No, go ahead, Holly.
I wanted to interject a question within something that Dr. Thomas said about identity. I can imagine that they're coming to churches under spiritual leadership and they're really searching for their mother, their father. Like, how do you distinguish between those who actually come to receive help versus those who are coming to kind of impose their baggage, so to speak, on you? If the question makes sense, like because I can imagine that you have those who come who may cling to you with a desire to heal, say, mother and father wounds, but that's not really, your job. Like, distinguishing between the two is what I'm asking, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Dr. Thomas? I know specifically you mentioned identity, so I wanted you to kind of speak to that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, for me, I come from a little different spot. I do how I distinguish that is when, and I want you to hear me, and this may be a new something, but I'm not trying to give anything new. It's just me. I believe that God is our covering. I am not your covering. I am a partner that is with you to help lead and assist you where you need to go. But I cannot cover you as in the point of being a covering. I believe that Jesus is the one that covers. And I think sometimes when people come in, they're expecting for you to cover them. That's why I say I can't carry the burdens of identity. I can help walk you through it, but I cannot be that identity for you. You have to find that identity, and you find that in the covering and allow Jesus to help facilitate that for you. I hope that helped.
But have you been able to like spot the differences between the people? Well, I guess you have been because of the work you do. I'm pretty sure it's easier for you to distinguish, okay, this person, bless their heart, versus, okay, you really need help. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, very, very on easily. I say it like this. And I don't want to shun anybody away because I think everybody needs to be respected where they are and who they are. So I never want to make anyone feel like they're less than or like I don't want to help them. But absolutely, I can really sense it if somebody comes in and they're talking and the first thing they're telling me is whatever is bad that happened. Maybe I'm gonna use from church to church. I'm gonna use that as my example. If you're coming and you're telling me everything that went bad at that church, I automatically know you're coming with something totally. Even in harming somebody, I think even in harming somebody, when somebody comes to you and they're automatically talking about that former employer or that place, that is a red flag for me because I know that things happen. I know that bad stuff happened, but I really want you to come and tell me about you, not about what somebody else did. Tell me about you, who you are, what you do, and then we can go into the other part. But first, I really want to know who you are, and that's kind of how I distinguish between that.
Got you. Okay.
I got a question to insert there, kind of just to piggyback off of what Holly mentioned with this in that same flow of identity. And I guess I'll throw this one out to you, Pastor Kim. And that same flow of identity and seeking that identity, how do you respond to, because, you know, in some of our sects of Christendom, there is this understanding about spiritual sonship and, you know, daughters and fathers and parents, yeah, the whole shebang, that whole concept of spiritual father, spiritual mother. How do you, as a pastor, kind of, to that point, a little bit of what Dr. Thomas was saying, but how do you as a pastor address that aspect when, like, people are coming with seeking you to be spiritual mother, or seeking you to be their spiritual father, but from that place that's not healthy, not from that place of, this is my pastor and they're going to walk alongside me to help me, but needing something from you that maybe they did not get from a parent, and now they're trying to throw that burden on you. And I know you guys both have definitely longevity in ministry and kind of new to pastoralship, but is that something that you may have already experienced in that engagement / marriage yet, Pastor Kim?
I haven't really tapped into that. Of course, you know, there are people who are going to try to cling to you because everybody wants to be a niece. Everybody wants to be, you know, just a friend or a buddy. But I have learned how to separate when I see you're trying to evade and get close to me. Because what I have noticed is that they can't come to me, so they try to get to my child or they'll try to get to my husband. And so then my discernment antenna goes up because, again, sometimes I have to flip flop as not just a pastor, but I have to flip flop as a servant. And, you know, trying to intertwine all of those can be tricky. But one of the things I've learned from someone some years ago, I've learned not to react, but I learned to listen before I respond. Because if I react in the moment, it causes a rift. And it also makes that person, because one thing I've learned, I'm trying to try the spirit by the spirit. And oftentimes, when people have a hidden agenda, then I'm very mindful of how I respond to them. If that's a good way of putting it. I hope I answered that question. Because people are, um, and I want to say people in the church, but can be a little messy. They can be a little messy, and they can be a little, you know, they can come in the form of light, but darkness really exudes out, you know, on them. And so I'm very mindful of how I present myself, even to people who I know are not coming to me as pastor, but are coming to me as something else. And so you really have to have a keen sense of discernment. And let me just throw this in there. I When you deal with mental health, you got to know which one is the spiritual aspect of it. Now, Dr. Thomas, this is your background. So, but what I have learned is some of this ain't spiritual. Some of this is you really need a little medication, and you really need to go sit on somebody's couch that can't provide for you. Now, the spiritual aspect, hey, I got you down pat. But when I know that's out of my lane, I'm gonna refer you to somebody, such as Dr. Thomas.
That's
Refer
awesome.
you to somebody. And yeah, so I don't want to, jump ahead, but yeah, I have learned how quickly, y'all. Been in ministry for a long time, but this pastoralship has matured me. It has really, really caused me to not judge too quickly, but really, really what is this? What do they say? Survey,
Survey, yeah.
do a survey of people. Like literally, you have to, because if you jump in too quick, man, you're gonna make a mess. You're gonna have a mess on your hands. And
Because
so you really have to pray. You really have to fast, and you really have to pump your brakes, because sometimes people will push you, and you have to say, no, 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 no. Give me a minute, and let me just inhale. Let me breathe. And let me think this thing through before I respond to you. Because what I know, y'all, is people will take what you say and run.
Yeah.
And they will remind you,
and
you remember what you said on July 26th at 6:30? No, I don't remember that, because I talk to so many people. So that's why I'm very mindful of what I say to people and how I respond to them. So, yeah.
And I was just going to make a comment. I can imagine like the complexities of that, between you got the mental health, people who really need help, and then you have those, the enemy sends to try to cause discord, to try to intentionally hurt you. So being able to navigate that space and discern, that's, totally,
That's good. Yeah. So both of you have already touched on one of these questions, so I'm going to skip that one. But tell us, how do you balance the congregational demand with that of family and rest? Because you both have family. And of course, when you're a pastor, people are pulling on you. You have to make decisions, especially now. Okay, both of you are newer to the role, but there are a lot of decisions that have to be made. You both have spouses. How do you balance it? What does that look like to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, you're getting enough rest, and you're also taking care of home? We'll go with you, Dr. Thomas.
One thing that I truly learned, and I think my sister said it too, being a PK, you see the wrongs, you see the ups, you see the downs. I know one thing for me is that my parents did it alone, and I understood that was something that they did. I mean, they had pastor friends, but I understand now, for me I cannot do this alone. And so that was one thing that I told my parents. I said, the only thing I'm gonna do different than y'all is, if these people don't come in here and do stuff, we ain't gonna have no church, because we gonna have to do this together. It needs to be us doing it. I can't come in and do everything and be all to everyone. I can come in, and I like what was said earlier, is that about servant. I am a servant leader. I am not just a pastor. I am a servant first. And I understand, in my servitude, I cannot pour out living water out of an empty vessel. It has to be a vessel that is refueled. Because the church can replace me any day. Just like I say, they can replace me, but my wife, so much, she can't replace me just that quickly. So I have to be able to give to her first, and minister to her, and give her what she needs and what she wants, and be able to still be able to be a servant leader. And what servant leader means to me is, I serve what I can give, and once I've poured it out, I have to go back and I have to refill. And so if that means I need to step away, so I'm not that pastor that I have to be in the pulpit every Sunday, and I know, pastor, if he's not there, then they, people, I can still sit down. So we do. So one thing that we do, I do these things called open mic preacher session. So we have the preachers come up, and we open the mic up, and we have a Sunday for that, for them. You know how they do open mic, but we do it for the open mic for the ministers of the church. And we do that once a month. And that's something that we will continue to do, to give me time to reprieve, because I'm a servant leader. I can only give so much.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. That's good. I like that. For me, I'm coming from a different angle. Um, like Dr. Thomas, I'm a servant as well. I love to serve. Even on Sunday mornings, I'm serving. If it's getting in, if the bathrooms need to be cleaned, I'm going to clean the bathroom, because it needs to be done. So that's what type of servant I am. But on the flip side, I'm a planner at heart. So I have a calendar, and it's color coordinated. And I have days where I take off. Again, I have a special needs child, so I have to really be mindful of everything that I do. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays are literally my ministry days, but Mondays and Fridays are my family days, and some Saturday mornings are so I'm very intentional because I don't want our child to ever feel like mommy puts the church before me. And when he wants to go to cookout every week, guess what? He's going to go to cookout every week. That's our time. But
Yeah.
I am intentional. People are intentional in what they do when they call you. I'm going to be intentional as a wife. I'm going to be intentional as a mother. But guess what? I'm going to also be intentional with taking care of Kim. And I have friends that I'm able to lean on. And as Dr. Thomas said, I'm able to be poured back into, not just for my friends, but my husband is a phenomenal man of God. And he pours into me weekly, daily. Sometimes, I could feel his hands praying for me in the middle of the night, but that's what, and I will say, y'all, who you marry matters. You need a partner in ministry that is going to support you and understand their role. Because guess what? When I'm home, I'm not Pastor Kim, I am Kim.
Yeah.
When I'm at church, I am Pastor K and my husband is First G. But we know how you have to learn how to switch roles because that's us. And I don't use the word balance. I use the word priority in the moment because they are my priority. When I'm at church, ministry is my priority. When it's time to have a meeting with the leaders, that's my priority. But guess what? I have a cutoff time because during the school year, I have my child on a set schedule. So I have to be mindful. Like some people, oh, I got people. No, ain't anybody coming over here to do nothing. Kim's gonna take care of this because this is Kim's responsibility for her family. So I cook. I have a set time that I cook. I plan meals. My life is literally color coordinated. I really try to be mindful because when something is off, y'all, it throws everything off. And again, when you have a child that has autism and ADHD, that's a mix. And so I have to prep him. I have to prep myself when there's a change in the schedule. I have to prep him because it affects who he is. Shanita will tell you, there were times, church, honey, friend, hey, it's something different at church. And he like, oh no, this ain't it sets him off. It's a trigger. And so, I have to be mindful because in there, and if I can say this, I'm sorry, y'all, because mental health is so dear because I deal with it 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Not just in ministry, but in my home. There was a time in ministry, it was during an altar call, and I was praying for everybody else, and my child was having an episode. And you know what I did? I stopped in the middle of that prayer. I got the oil and I laid hands on him. And until he calmed down was when I was able to move back to what the Lord had me doing during that altar call. And so everybody don't have that. And so I'm grateful because in that moment, I learned a valuable lesson because at the end of the day, I got to pray for him before I could pray for anybody else.
Amen.
I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm going to share something about both of y'all, if y'all don't mind me sharing it. If I start talking too much, just stop.
And I have a question after your share.
I have noticed with Pastor Kim, because I was going there for some months off and on. And God made it clear to me like this was my holding place after a while. It took me a while to see it. But I remember one of the first times that I visited, your son I think he ran across the stage or ran across the floor. And I was just smiling. I was just like, this is the best thing. And you went to him and to try to, create some type of comfort for him. And you stopped what you were doing in ministry. And I thought that was the greatest
That's
ministry
awesome.
at that time. And I just smiled and smiled. I thought it was a beautiful thing to see you do that because that's not customary in ministry. And so I honor you for that, because that was very respectful of your family, you know, and setting a boundary. And then also, two other things I noticed, like with your anniversary for you and Charles, I think there was no service on that day, or Wednesday gathering or whatever. And I was like, this is priority. And it wasn't that, you know, oh, they just canceling church. No, I'm making room for something that is significant in my family. Pastor Thomas, Dr. Thomas does the same thing. I know, you know, when they've traveled, he and Sharon, first of all, they travel all over the world. But I've never seen people that have businesses the way they do, and still they make room for themselves.
Awesome.
They make themselves priority. Is it okay for me to say where y'all just went?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were just in Canada on a marriage retreat.
Awesome.
That is the prioritizing of your marriage. And so seeing those things are important, because we need healthy marriages in church. There's enough of us that I'm divorced now, I was married for 18 years. So it still gives me hope to see marriages that are not perfect, but you are doing what's necessary to maintain your household, even though you're still functioning in ministry. So it is important who you marry. So thank you to both of you for
Absolutely.
openly displaying your priorities for the rest of us to see.
Yeah.
Amen.
I wanted to piggyback in that same vein of talking about priorities and ask this question. You kind of alluded to it a little bit, Dr. Thomas, when you were speaking short time ago. As it pertains to you guys both being new in that pastoral role, have you had a chance, since I know it's kind of fresh, have you guys had a chance to sit down with your teams and map out? It sounds like you guys have completely made it apparent that you guys have boundaries or balance, or as I like what Kim said, priorities in the moment. I'm gonna use that because it makes the most sense. But have you guys had a chance to sit down with your leadership and model what that's going to look like going forward? Like, I know you said you had the open mic ministry times. Is there certain times where you guys have factored in sabbatical times where you are not preaching, you're away from the church? Is that something that you are going to, you know, maybe incorporate? The reason I'm asking that is because it seems like with these mental health things that have come up in the body lately is from taking on obviously way too many burdens and not really modeling what Sabbath looks like. And so now you're all burnt out and stressed out because you got to preach all, 52 weeks, and you don't utilize your deacons, your trustees, or whoever, your elders, whatever. So I just wanted to know if you guys have had a chance yet to kind of model, or if not model, kind of map out what you think that will look like in your own ministries as it pertains to instituting times of Sabbath rest for yourself.
I think we both.
Where you're not in the pulpit is what I'm getting to, where you're not in the pulpit preaching.
I think we both established that we are definitely servant leaders, that we are leaders. And I feel like that, you know, one thing I stand on is that boundaries are not selfish. It's not selfish to be
Absolutely
boundaries.
not.
They are stewardship. It is actually stewardshiping the people into who they need to be. And I think as a pastor, I think one thing that I see is that it makes it hard for some pastors to understand that they need to look for successors. So I think us being not in the pulpit is us actually looking for the next. Who is the next? Because I'm not going to be here all the time. Pastor Kim is not going to be here all the time. So who is that next person? So looking for that and being there for, and I hope this answers the question. I think having that person or those successors come up, I think because of the great, a leader is only great as the people that's around him. So I think building those people and putting them into place. And I think if pastors would understand that, I know I come from old school where, the pastor, he didn't retire. He was falling asleep trying to preach. And he wouldn't sit down. And then his wife be in the background laid all the way out, and she'd be totally asleep,
Wow.
And so I come from that, and I understand that, but I understand that there also has to be a successor. And when he died, unfortunately, the church died because there was nobody to come and take it over,
Absolutely.
because there was no successor there. So for me, I think that boundary is, yes, I've had those meetings to tell them who is the successor in this bill, and not that I mean take it over while I'm here, or
Right,
whatever. We're working together, so let's work it
absolutely.
together and let's find those boundaries. But I think a lot of times there is a lot of fear base that comes in, because I've known churches where somebody raised up, he was a better preacher, and then they had this church split. So I get
Yeah,
why people do that, because they're scared for that.
yeah,
But the old saying, they wasn't, if they leave, they really wasn't yours no way. So you just kind
absolutely.
of you don't
Absolutely.
get stressed out. You just leave it to God and let him handle it.
Yeah.
Well, I wholeheartily agree, and just to kind of piggyback what Dr. Thomas said, even as being young pastors, Miles Monroe said it best: you gotta find a successor. You cannot do this thing for the rest of your life. And I started thinking, I was like, ooh, I never looked at it. You listen to people, but when you are in the moment, when you are in a situation, you like, wow, understand what he meant, because you're not going to do this for forever. I mean, just like we're on our jobs, you're not going to do your job forever. You gotta open up. You can't be gatekeepers in this season. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? You got to be able to pour back into people and allow them to do what they do. And I tell the preachers at the church, don't preach like me. Preach how Jesus, preach Jesus. As long as you preaching Jesus, that's all that matters. If you get up there and preach Jack and Jill went up the hill, honey, give it some effort. have a scripture to go with Jack and Jill went up the hill, and most of all, put some prayer with it. But I'm being funny when I say that, but I can't do it all, and
Yeah.
I have learned even in these 3 months that I have been pastoring, I've learned how to let someone else preach. I've even poured on my husband, even for Father's Day. He did a phenomenal job for Father's Day, because I know there are moments, growing up, there were certain things that the pastor had to do. The pastor had to preach Mother's Day, Father's Day, all these different days.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. Yes, I preached, a lot of Sundays, but there are times when I know the voice is needed in the house, and I'm okay with that. I'm not jealous, because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, guess what? I
Yeah.
still work my 9 to 5. I don't depend on. I depend
Wow.
on Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Depend on Jesus.
That's
I don't
true.
depend on, because people are fickle.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yeah.
So I've just learned how to literally navigate and allow others to shine, because when they shine, we all win. And when they shine, at the end of the day, we got to remember that when you win, we all wins.
I got a
Yeah.
question for you, Pastor
I got a
Kim.
question after
I know
Holly.
you
Oh, Jesus.
I know you mentioned, of course, the dynamic of your church being pastor and, Charles being first gentleman.
Mhm.
Given the decision with the Baptist National Convention, and I've seen a lot of commentators, whether it be YouTubers, come out the woodworks regarding women keeping silent in the church and not operating in leadership roles in the church. Given all of the chatter, has that affected you in any way, or have you had anyone come in your ministry,
Like,
challenging you in that degree?
no
Okay.
one. And
All
if
right.
they did, they are very mindful of what they say. I know who
Gotcha.
I am, and I know who I belong to. And they didn't
Amen.
call me, the Lord called me. And I know my assignment in this season. And I'm going to preach Jesus, whether it's men in the church or whether it's women in the church.
Yeah.
Long as Jesus is there, that's what my assignment is. So no, I have not allow that to affect me, because I know who I am. And and
Amen.
and I just want to encourage any other woman that is out there that is like, should I do? No, do what the Lord has called
Yeah.
you to do and be confident.
Yes.
Be bold in your stance because your voice is needed in this season. So
Right.
yeah, that doesn't bother me. That it doesn't bother me because I know who I am.
Yeah.
I do.
All right.
You know
Amen.
her identity.
Come on, he knows
Yes.
my identity.
Pastor Kim, you hit on something that I want to
Mhm.
bounce to you real quick, if it's okay to get a quick question to Dr. Thomas and to yourself. When you were talking about, you jokingly said it, but you're like, I got a 9 to 5. Like,
Mm-mm.
listen, I'm not depending on the folk. So, Dr. Thomas is laughing.
Yeah.
So, in that sense, because both of you guys obviously are bivocational, it appears, pastors. And when you have pastors who are not bivocational, who their primary meat and potatoes, bread, how they support their family is through ministry, do you feel like that plays a part into the extra mental health burden because of
Gotta
the
get this money.
dependency
Yeah.
and like you got to make this thing
Yeah.
work, if that how that plays in? I'll ask Dr. Thomas first.
Okay, go ahead, Dr.
He's a
Thomas. You talk
doctor.
real good now.
Absolutely. I think when you were talking, my mind, I have this my wife calls it I be on demand when I start. So I start picturing all this stuff in my head. But I do feel like that totally. Can you repeat the question one more time? I'm sorry.
So my question was, when you are a bivocational pastor such as yourself, when when you're not a bivocational pastor and your total dependence is on the ministry, how do you feel like that plays into the burden that a lot of these pastors may be experiencing that are having some of these mental health crises?
That's where I went.
I hope
So when you were talking the question, I started seeing all the churches that I know that I'm affiliated with. Most of them who are doing it, they really had to go out and start. They got restaurants, they got this because that
Right.
financial burden is definitely something that will take you into a mental state and
Absolutely.
stress you all the way out. And I
Absolutely.
feel like the church now, I know a lot of people say, well, the church don't give, but I actually think that was a part of God's plan because of the church being in the shape that it's been in. The giving part had to cease to get us to align. And so in that ceasing will cause us to really have to focus on the ability of our mental state, of our health, and having to be able to really function to be that church that we know that we can be. Because back in the day, let's face it, the church was everything. We were the school, we were the place, we were the place you could go. And then when we transferred that over to the government, that's when we started seeing all the problems in our own community, but I won't go there. But I'm saying when we get back to that and we create that space for ourselves, I think that is something that definitely the Lord is involved in, and definitely seeing those people who do it for, and I won't say for a living, but they do it, that's their main source. I do feel like they do have to come up with other things not to be in that mental state. And even I've had to counsel some for myself, and I tell them, what is it that you do best outside of church? Let's find that thing. So this financial burden doesn't stress you out, but that it moves you to the place of peace and where you don't have to worry about how you're going to feed your family, how you're going to pay the bills, but find something else to do. And I think that's where the Lord has us, to really not focus on, to put the demand on the people, but put the demand on him and allow him to do what he needs to do.
Absolutely.
That's good.
I agree. I totally agree. Because I think oftentimes when we look at the demand, yeah, and there are things that are a trigger based off what I've experienced in the past. And probably gonna get in trouble when I say this, but it's okay. I see why there are so many seed offerings in church because people. I'm not saying this is everybody's reality. I'm not saying that, but I do understand when there's a extra seed, because people have to be compensated for what they do. And so that's why I'm very mindful of making decisions that we have to take money from our house to plant into ministry, because I can plant seeds in ministry, but I got to make sure that we have, you know, things, the necessary resources in our home to keep our home from going in lack, if that makes sense. And so I never want to rely. And let me just say this: you have to be a faith walking person. When you say the Lord said to come off your job and you do full-time ministry, you have to say, you have to make sure without a shadow of a doubt that's what the Lord said, not your flesh, not what everybody else is doing, because you can't do like everybody else doing.
Yeah.
Because guess what? They got side gigs, and they got family that will support them. But when you don't have nobody, you got to be mindful of what you say, that the Lord said for me to quit my job. You don't have no health insurance, you don't have no direct deposit, you don't have nothing. All you are is relying on the church. And when the church you cannot take your check to the bank, what you gonna do?
Yeah.
You got to make sure when you say the Lord says do this, it is God, because God will supply everything that you need. He will supply your need, but you got to make sure this is God. This is a God thing, not your flesh thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good answers.
Yeah, because I can imagine that can affect someone's compassion, for the
Right.
people,
Right.
because they can't pay their bills. It's like it
Right.
affects your service inadvertently
Right. Because now you're having to pull on the people. There's a need. I need 100
Yeah.
people to give $200.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
Exactly.
then that opens up another can of worms for so many people
Yeah.
who have been a part of ministries where they've had to give seed after seed after seed, and they lost and they lost and they lost
Yeah.
because they was going off of what the man of God or the woman of God said. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tricky thing, but you got to make sure it's God that's telling you to come off your job, and it's
My
God that's telling you to
gosh.
sow that seed. It takes faith. It
Yeah.
takes faith. I
My
promise you, it
goodness.
takes faith. Look at Dr. Thomas.
I know he's just over there laughing silently.
So I mentioned in the beginning that there was a pastor online who recently divulged his need for prayer and noted specifically what was going on in his life. Do you agree with pastors being that transparent with the congregation? And if you don't know, I don't want to mention his name, but
it was another guy too, just to interject there.
okay.
When I had wrote that question, I was thinking about, remember the Caucasian guy who stood before his congregation and he was in tears and was like, that's who I was referring to. But then
Okay.
they do have the recent guy,
Yeah.
who, yeah.
There are actually several
Yeah,
cases.
yeah, yeah,
More
yeah.
recently, you find that some pastors are starting to be a little bit more transparent
Yeah.
with their congregation. Do you agree with pastors being that transparent with the congregation, or do you believe that pastors should withhold some information? I So there are some pastors that will give some information and to let you know that they're human, just like
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, kind of what you said, Dr. Thomas, is people replace Jesus with their pastor and they forget that the pastor is actually a human. But then you have some pastors who, I don't want to say overshare, but they share more heavily, more transparently than
Yeah.
others. So, do you agree that pastors should be totally transparent as they have been or have been and share their personal lives?
I think when it's pain involved, I think transparency builds trust. I think unprocessed pain builds confusion. That's when you get the pastors who weaponize the word instead of teaching the word.
God.
Who replace it with their own with their own theology instead of using God's theology.
Right.
So I think when it comes to pain, and yes, I think 100 wholeheartedly you need to be transparent, because transparency builds trust, but that unprocessed pain just builds confusion, and it makes people not understand where that person stands or what is actually really going on. Because people gonna know what's going on. They gonna know something. I remember back in the day, my parents would fuss the whole way to church. And we would get there and I'd be like, what in the world? How we gonna handle it? But even but I know within that, because there was just a high stress level for them it's just at the beginning of it, when it was young for them, I understood it as that. And then my mom would just get up there and be like, just straight transparent. And I was like, it builds strong relationships. And when I saw other churches where their marriages was falling apart, and not saying that divorce is bad, because it is what it is, but I'm saying it didn't happen because they were so transparent. They were able to help other people. Like, well, we argued today coming to church. And it's like, so I think that pain, really, really transparency builds that trust in people. And that's what I think. Yeah.
So true. And I'm probably going to go a different angle, look at it from a different angle, because I feel like if people will work on their private behavior, their public display will be different. I think privately, people don't know how to handle what they are doing in secret. Um, I guess for me, I'm just learning that yes, it's good to be transparent, but then there's a moment when you have to say, they not doing this, I'm doing this. And there's a level of accountability as a leader that you have to say, you know what, let me work on this. Let me get some help so that when I come back to my congregation, I'm able to say, yes, for a season, for 3 months or 4 months, I have been battling with this, but I did the work. I went to a therapist. I did everything. I got on medication, did whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then sometimes for me, the coming after the moment helps. Sometimes, again, everybody's different. I just feel like because when you are in the moment, sometimes that can add, that can open up a area that many people, if you're already weak, that will add more stress to your life. That's just me personally. I just feel like even some of the things that I have dealt with, I did not talk about it until after it was over. And then I was able to be more transparent as far as, and I don't even know if she was there one Sunday. There was a situation that happened in my marriage, but that was years ago. But I did not talk about it until recently across the pulpit because it was over and done with, and people were able to receive it because I wasn't in the moment and dealing with it. And so I'm learning that sometimes being so open and being so transparent and being so, in the words of my mama, vulnerable, hey, that you sometimes that works in your favor, sometimes that doesn't work in your favor. And it just depends on the situation. Again, everybody's different. Every situation is different. But for me, I just feel like if I'm in that situation, let me work on it so that, because one thing I don't want to do is bleed on people.
Right.
I don't want to do
that's
that
good.
because
Let
people
me
are
ask this.
already. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh.
No, I want to push back just a smidget, Pastor Kim.
Mhm.
So in those moments, like I get it. Some people are going to be transparent and some people aren't going to be as transparent. My question is, what's happening while you're in the moment? Are you still pastoring? Are you still leading? Because I'm thinking there was a situation, because everybody dealing with something, all of us. And there was a situation that came out a very well-known gospel contemporary Christian, whatever genre you want to put him in, came forth and was like, I've been to rehab for the past, I don't know, 3 months, however long he said he was in rehab. And, you know, he was giving God praise and glory. And so was I, like, amen, get the help you need. But this is just me being my authentic self. I was like, dang, when was he in rehab? Because I done seen him on like 25 different shows,
Still serving.
singing his whole heart out, serving the Lord well. I was like, was he in rehab when he was doing all this singing and all this traveling? That was my point. Because I was like, were you in rehab while you were still actively still in ministry?
Well, let me just say this with him. Let me just pick it back out, and I'll let you finish what you were saying. I think he probably was still doing ministry because guess what? He still had to eat.
Yeah, this is lively.
And if that's their source of income, that's what people are going to do, and that's why it's so important that people have multiple streams of income. You just can't rely on one source. Jesus is the ultimate source, but you cannot rely on one source. But when it comes down to, for me, again, everybody is different, but for him, I think I would have to sit down to get the healing. That's just me.
Right.
That's me. I would have to sit down in order to get what I need so that I can be healthy. Because I want to be a healthy pastor. I don't want to be, a pastor that is just damaged goods and I'm just going through them. I've seen that. I've seen so many pastors who are pastoring, but they are broken. They are, they are addicted to so many things, and it's not healthy for their body. And I want to be healthy, mind, soul, and spirit. So yeah.
And I think to that point that you're making, which goes back to the mental health component, when you feel like, apparently he did, like you said, this is his bread butter, this is how he supplies his needs for his family and takes care of his wife and kids and all the things, that even in the middle of, because he said rehab, he didn't say therapy. So rehab, to me, doctor, clarify, means alcohol or substances. Serious. And you're still actively, and we know the gifted and callings are without repentance. I'm not even going down the theological route. I'm just saying from that practical mental health stance, when do you sit down so that you don't find yourself in this position where now you have no other choice but to?
I think too, just piggybacking off that question, that some people, the thought process in some circles in the church is that you do keep going. That David, he was a man after God's own heart. He slept with Bathsheba, but and so they use those examples to say that you are supposed to keep going. So, but what do you guys, about her question?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Maybe it depends on what the issue is. Because when Dr. Thomas was talking about his parents were arguing on the way to church, everybody argues
different. Yeah, everybody does it. Yeah.
That's not, even though as kids, you feel some kind of way about like, what y'all just arguing. But it's a regular, normal thing. Whether Jesus, you lead in the ministry or whatever, it's just normal. But if you are the pastor that's running through all the women in the church, on any given day, you might need to sit down, please. And so every woman in the church is not vulnerable or susceptible to your unhealed self. That might be a case. You had sex with 20 women in the church. It is at that point harmful and damaging to the people in the ministry. Your ministry is, your witness is practically destroyed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a matter of case by case situation, and then who makes that decision.
Exactly.
So that's something else.
Especially if they don't have anybody over them that's kind of governing those type of affairs. Exactly. Yeah.
For me, I don't think sin has a level. I think sin is sin.
Ooh.
So
I
if
agree
I
with
so if I
Mm.
so if I'm gossiping about somebody and I'm causing harm, that's sin. If I'm
Mhm.
doing something outside of that sexual I think we hold these things. That's why the church gets in trouble with the
Yeah.
LGBTQ. They feel like we just own them and we just don't like them. No, 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 no. We should hold everything accountable and everybody
Yeah.
to an extent. And that's why I say when
Absolutely.
it's unprocessed pain, when it's causing
Right.
pain
Yeah.
to somebody else, that's when you need to be transparent. You need to
Right.
be able to help. I think when it's something internal, I think that's what Pastor Kim is saying, something internal that's going on inside of you, then you should step down. You should deal with that that's inside of you. But when it's causing pain, like with our pastor who's saying, he feels like his mental health is now he wanted to release that. I don't think he had to. I think he could have just
Yeah.
sit down and say, I'm gonna deal. But
Absolutely.
when that pain is unprocessed and you're hurting everyone else, I think you have to be transparent in that moment. You can't sit and go hide and then say, well, I'm gonna deal with this. No, I think you need to be transparent in that moment and deal with that. But when it's something eternally going on, like Pastor Kim said, and I don't want to quote you wrong, but I do believe if there's something internally going on, I don't think you have to share everything that's going on internally inside of you.
Right.
Because
Right.
I mean, I'm dealing with something right now. And as y'all talk, I'm thinking, oh my God, I just got to deal with this. So I'm saying there's something always going on internally inside of
Absolutely.
us that God is putting
Right.
on. But when that pain is not processed, like Sweet said, and you doing all of these things, and you just like, no, I think you need to hone up to that because I think you need to be able to process that, and that's when I think that transparency builds trust in the church or in church settings. I think that helps us.
So
Hmm.
I,
who holds those individuals? Because I agree with you. There's no level of sin.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think we make some common things sinful, like
Yeah.
We do.
arguing. Like that's you're working through your differences,
yeah.
not
Mhm.
but who holds if a pastor is not willing, because I've seen where pastor refused to sit down. Now they were of the belief that there is covering, so they came from another ministry, and the pastor over that ministry gave the instruction to have a seat, and
Hmm.
the person refused. So who is
Oh
holding
wow.
you accountable
Mhm.
if
Exactly.
somebody does need to
Yeah.
get some therapy, get some help, or whatever the case may be.
Mm.
Oh yes. Please answer these questions, pastors.
Because we as a congregation, it's not like some churches are traditional in that they have, I don't know, deacon boards or different
Deacon
boards
boards
that
in the
hold the
Baptist church
pastor
shuts them
accountable
down.
because they were voted in. But
Mm-hmm.
then you have some that are, say, church plants, or they
Mhm.
have inherited the church, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
They may not
Mhm.
necessarily be up under someone
A
else.
covering.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Denominational oversight or whatever.
So how does that work? What does that look like? Because not everybody has the same level of self accountability. We should, through the Holy Spirit,
You
we should
should.
get a clear, like, okay, I need to do this for myself and to cover my congregation. As far as when I say cover, meaning not bring them into my mess, like you said, bleed on them.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So
Right.
um, yeah.
Well, I'm going to look at it from a different perspective because I feel like if that pastor has chosen not to sit down, then it becomes the responsibility of the members to say, do we want to stay in this or do we want to leave? Because
Hmm.
you can't preach to empty seats, or you can preach to empty seats, but how long can you do that when you don't have anybody to preach to? I think that if people will ever get to a place where they start saying, you know what? I don't have to sit in this. I got another option to go to. And again, I'm just thinking from a different perspective. My mindset is a little different now. And I feel like if people would ever, if you guys knew something and you were members of 602 and I was on the news, I was just acting a plum fool.
Oof.
You guys don't have to come to 602. You do realize there's like 1,001 churches in Fayetteville or in Charlotte or in Greensboro, wherever. Sometimes the responsibility will rise on. Uh, relies on the people that's in the pew. And sometimes the people in the pew can just say, you know what? I don't have to deal with this. I'm not coming back. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my mentality. That's just my thought process because you can't preach to me if you don't want to be accountable. I'm sorry. I mean, I got
My
flaws,
God.
but if I can be accountable, show the goodness. You can be accountable as well. So tell
Well,
me if I'm wrong, Dr. Thomas. You smart. He real smart.
I don't know if I'm smart. I don't know. I think I'm Holy Spirit led. I don't know about
Oh
smart,
yeah,
but
that part too.
but no, I agree with you. When she said that, I was like, well, who is accountable? I think the congregation is accountable. I think they are accountable to say whether if they want to stay or if they don't want to,
Right.
but and then I look at like, but some people are like kind of brainwashed. So I don't know. I guess I guess
Yeah.
we as the people
True.
would have to pray for those people inside
Right.
that
Right. Absolutely.
maybe not. So I think it becomes a whole body of Christ experience at
Mm-hmm.
that point. Because if
Mm-hmm.
somebody is being manipulated and, like you take some, a pastor who has whatever sickness he has and he's doing it toward kids or something, you have these kids manipulated
Right.
and it's just you have to really pray for those families. And I think, but I definitely truly believe with you, I think it starts with the congregation.
Wow.
I think it starts with the congregation too. Like, I agree with you guys, but this is totally off topic for what we're talking about. But then I think the other thing too is, like, this is a whole nother side conversation for another podcast. When you have churches that don't have any oversight,
Exactly.
like, I think it's easy for, like, of course I can, pack up my bags and leave. And I understand. I see your brain working, Dr. Thomas. But when I say don't have oversight, meaning, and that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be under a denominational umbrella,
Mhm.
but what is the oversight in the church? Who has the authority as a body to do any type of govern? If pastor is having a mental health crisis and is off his meds,
Oh Lord.
who says, Pastor, we really need you to go and seek treatment or therapy or go talk to whatever, because it's starting to bleed out? And I'm thinking about instances where things happened that were egregious in the body and there wasn't any type of over I mean, that's the only thing I can think to name it, oversight, and it just was somewhat chaotic. Of course, people left and then people stayed, and it just was like, how?
I, I still think that falls on the congregation. I'm gonna use it like this. Like my wife would not marry me until she came to Kentucky, met my friends. Who do I hang around? Who do I know?
Mm-hmm.
Who? Let me meet your parents. Let me meet your friends. I mean, she met everybody in Louisville before she left and before she made that decision to want to marry me. So I think it is the same thing for a person who's coming in. I know we feel this, this excitement, or we come to the altar and we feel all these things. And I always say I struggle with that because I don't want you to just come to the altar and feel something. I want you to be able to stand in this altar and on Monday still stand,
Yeah.
not go out and still be falling away. So I think people have to do their due diligence, because you're right. There are a whole lot of churches out here that are not accountable to anybody but themselves. And even that is a 501c3 that's illegal, because you're not supposed to have a
Teach
group of
us,
Yep,
people
doctor.
you are.
Yeah.
that are actually in there understanding where those funds go. So when you have that first church and they the only one controlling the money, like, that's all. Like you said, that's a whole nother issue, because that's a 501c3. You getting this tax exempt. You need to be accountable. So I think I don't want people to start going out asking, well, who is you know what I'm saying? But you do. I mean, they have to
They want to
have
hold them accountable.
they have to have, that's what I'm saying, but you can do your research then. If they don't have a fingerprint on the internet, then I would question that anyway. So there's
Oh.
always things you can look up on people. And if
Absolutely.
they don't have a fingerprint on, so they gotta have some fingerprint somewhere now that we run it. So it's a little easier for us than back in the day. We should be
Yeah.
able to research you and know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had a a question along the lines of the transparency piece. Like, I had a comment too. I know you had mentioned about the gentleman, divulging his information online. I feel like he had to do that in a sense because he is a social media personality as well. So there's that piece too. Like when you have a following on in your church as well as on social media, that responsibility that you feel to divulge certain information to both parties. But going to the other part of the transparency piece, when we was talking, what came to mind was, I don't know if y'all guys ever seen that clip where the guy is in front of his congregation and he's like, such and such, you ain't worth a nickel. This person, you ain't doing this in the church, and y'all and back in the production booth. I know you bet y'all have never seen
Yes,
that
I've
clip.
seen that.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll have to send it to him,
Oh
Holly.
yeah, I'm gonna have to see it, but it's hilarious. But what I'm alluding to is like processing, like you're talking about processing that pain, whether it be betrayal by members of the congregation or whether it just be disappointment.
Yeah.
Like, how do you, compartmentalize, I guess, those things and still be able to go get in front of them and preach without lashing out?
Yeah. That's a good question, Holly.
You thinking like, oh, I don't know. And I
For me,
Yeah.
I think that most times when something is something that you are feeling towards something, I always say you have to check yourself, because most of the time it's something in you that it actually hit the inside of you. What is making you so if I'm in a room and I feel like, how sometimes you just go in a room and you just don't like that person, like something in you just, and I always say, okay, I got to check what is in me, what is in my heart that's making me not like this person. Let me go inside and see what that is, because most of the time it's something in you that you're actually feeling that may not be that person actually pushing off. And I feel like that's a way that you don't get up there and start weaponizing, because you got to go within yourself and find out what is inside of you so you can deal with that. And I know that takes work, and trust me, it takes work to do that, but you really need to process that and really be able to get into that, where you don't get up there and start preaching on what just happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was, yeah, I would. What do you think, Pastor Kim? Because, like,
Oh,
I think,
go ahead.
no, yeah, just to that point, like what Holly was saying, I've had like extensive conversations with my pastor, because our church is a 10-year-old church plant, and I was one of the first members, like helping out. And we talked about the hurt that he feels as a pastor. Like, I'm like, Dad, they're not here anymore. I'm sad. But he carried it different, obviously, because he was a pastor. Like, how do you compartmentalize that when it's not a situation where Dr. Thomas, where you're like, why am I feeling this way? You're feeling this way because these Negroes really did something to you.
Yeah.
And now you got to really compartmentalize to not bleed out.
But still acknowledging it,
Yeah.
still being able to process through it. Yeah.
I think we have to be mindful as pastors not to, I think that this word has been used, not to weaponize in the midst of our sermons, because we can throw jabs in our sermons. Some people do it intentionally, and then there are those it just happens. It just happens to come out. But you have to be mindful of what. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. You have to really be mindful of what comes out of this mouth of ours, because there are some people in the congregation who listen to everything you say, and they will recall everything you say across the pulpit. And so even when Dr. Thomas was talking about unprocessed pain, as a pastor, that's why it's so important that you don't take everything to your house. You have to have a cutoff. You have to have an outlet. You have to have someone that you can talk to, whether it's weekly, monthly. You have to have an outlet, whether it's a therapist, whether it's going on a vacation, going on a sabbatical, going on, just a self-care retreat just for you. You have to be able to do that, because what you don't want to do is just say was, because some things is in our heart doesn't need to be verbally out. You don't have to verbally say it all the time. And I think it's so important that we just learn how to navigate our mental health,
Yeah.
because our mental health matters, to everybody, because we are leading a congregation. And if we are unhealthy, it is going to be an unhealthy church. And we got enough, we have enough going on, in this world, that we want a healthy church. We want healthy leaders. We want healthy words, because I don't want you just to be up there preaching to me. I want you to preach Jesus. I want you to preach the scripture, preach the word, so that people can run on to see what the end is going to be. So yeah, I just feel like, we can ever get to that place where we are healthy as pastors.
Yeah.
And again, my parents, I think my parents are probably the same age as Dr. Thomas' parents. They didn't go to no therapist, child. They went to the altar.
They went to the
Oh,
altar.
Jesus, 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 Jesus.
Good morning,
That's what they did.
To the white
That's
coat.
what they did. And
Yeah.
they had the prayer meetings. They went to the houses. They did what they were taught. But I feel like we have a better advantage, in this climate called church, because now we have other resources, that we can rely on. We have, mental health. We have, we have, just a lot of things that people can just fall back
Mhm.
on, that our parents didn't have, years ago. So
I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask
Well,
this. It, literally, I think we have touched on almost every single question, and I haven't even asked all of
Not
them.
can I
Yeah.
say something to that though, real
Yeah.
quick? What Sweet asked, just real quick. I think when it comes down to congregation and congregation hurts you, I think as a pastor, as a leader, you have to understand where is that person at in their life. Because a lot of
that's
times we're
good.
going to deal with mental illness. We have to look at sometimes the response is a trauma response. So we
Yeah.
can't get upset to a person that don't know. They don't know how to deal with that, or they don't know how to understand that. So we have to place them in boxes. My wife will tell you, I have a saying, and it's not funny, but it is, because I'm like, they crazy. So why would I get upset? They just crazy. There's nothing that I could say to them to help them. They just have a mental illness. And I think Pastor Kim said it best. They need medication. So I'm not going to get upset with somebody who is just needing medication and they not getting the help that they need. That's when I say I cannot carry your identity. I can help you carry burdens, but I can't carry your identity. You have
That's
to
so
focus
true.
on that.
That is so true, Dr. Thomas. So true. That is so
Yeah.
true. Oh, that's why honey, come on, man of God. Yes.
So yeah, so we have answered practically every question. I mean, literally, there were about 6 more questions. I'm just going to ask this last one, Pastor Kim. You kind of touched on this. Um, why do you believe? And we're going to make this our final question, unless Sweet and Holly have something just to be.
Did we? I had a. I had. I see one question. I don't know if we really answered.
Yeah.
Um, we were. We didn't say it so much, but did we talk about how what should be the protocol? I don't know if we talked. I know we talked a
We
lot.
did a little.
Yeah,
Oh,
we did
okay.
touch on
We
that
did.
one.
Okay.
But I think the one around surrounding pastors asking for help, let's see, the negative views
That
surrounding it.
was the one I
Wow.
was going to say. Yep,
Oh, okay.
that
Okay,
was the
so
one I was
gotcha.
going to say.
Okay, cool.
So the question is, this is the final question that we really hadn't touched on. Well, Pastor Kim, you did touch on it a little bit with your parents. Why do you believe there are such negative views surrounding pastors asking for help and or being transparent about it? And I don't know if that's a generational thing or cultural, but why do you think that is?
I think people have experienced bad previous leaderships. and it has caused a rift within the ministry, within churches. But I do believe that if more leaders and pastors, and I said this before, if we would just work on our private behavior, it might get a little better. I think what happens behind closed doors affects so many leaders because what they do privately, they feel like, oh, nobody's gonna know, or I'm good. I'm in my house. I'm good. But in actuality, you're not good because if you can't do this, what you do privately, if you can't do it publicly, then the two really, it's really hard for them to really mix. Again, this is just my thought process. And I think for me, um, I, I'm at a place in my life where I am really scared to willfully sin.
My Lord.
Especially intentionally sin against the Father. And this is where Kim is because of the position that I am in ministry. I never want to be somebody's stumbling block. Not saying I'm gonna be a perfect pastor, but I never want to be a stumbling block to anybody because of what I will not take care of privately.
Oh my.
That's a strong
That's good.
conviction because everybody don't have it, unfortunately, but that's what it should be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dr. Thomas, did you have anything to add?
I think culturally, I don't want to say that we actually do this. I think maybe it's accidentally that we do this, but we accidentally put pastors in being superhuman.
Oh,
Yeah, we do.
And we make them these
truth.
superhuman people.
Demigods.
And you said it earlier, we forget that they are human, not superhuman. And so I think we accidentally put them in that place. I don't want to say that and I think it's a cultural thing. I think, especially, I don't like the term black church. Well, I don't like those terms, but we do those terms because culturally, or when we do, culturally, we have these things where, hey, we say, hey, we say that's the spirit. That's cultural. That's not, everybody ain't doing that. This feel the
That's
spirit.
true.
Some of the holiness white people are. Those apostolic holiness people, they quick and quivers. Yeah.
It's a picture culture, though. Yeah.
But I'm saying, but it's still a culture within
It is.
church.
Yeah.
And I feel like even within the church, things become a culture and we forget that these people are human and we forget that they need to be discipled too. And we'll celebrate the healing of the one in the crowd. But when the pastor get healed, oh, you shouldn't have went through that no way. We ignore what they've been through and don't celebrate the victory of them. We say don't bleed on the congregation. Well, the congregation can't bleed on the pastor either. You got to celebrate the moments when he or she gets victory, because the Bible never said that leaders wasn't going to struggle. I mean, we see that in the Bible. The whole Bible is full of leaders struggling and leaders being, human. So I think that's when it becomes a part of what the devil wants us to pretend to be something that we're not, when we can just be human and not be fearful of, what's going to happen, like just be transparent. I can tell you, like last Sunday, we were having a moment where the Spirit of God was moving and we was having that culture, quibbling and shaking moment. But, when I got up, I told the congregation, I said, I can't look at y'all right now and I got to get mine for me. Like, this is a moment for me. So I just laid out on the floor. This is what I do at home. So I'm going to just do it here with y'all. And then I'll get up and make sure y'all all right. But right now, I need to take this time for me. But, I think it did go up in the uproar. But sometimes we be like, well, what is he dealing with? Tasha Cobb said something that was important. One time she put, I don't know if y'all saw that. I know y'all said y'all not saying names, so I said her name, but whatever. So I know. But she had mentioned that she was struggling in her faith, and everybody immediately thought that it was sin. Like we automatically thought. She said, no, it was my closeness to God.
Yeah, I saw that.
The Father for me. And so that's when it's being transparent. So I think, as leaders, they feel like, oh, she's the superhero. No. She's talking about her closeness with God. So the same way you put your pants on and your, for women, y'all put your dress on, you know what I'm saying? So the same way you do that is the same way the pastor has to do. And I think sometimes we just don't realize that sometimes Pastors are not superhuman, they are humans.
Right.
And that's the thing I think too, that leads them to suffer in silence because of that ideal. They
Yeah.
won't share, like even with people who are closest to them, to release those burdens. But yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So do you think that, I know I said that was a final. This is really the final one.
That was for play.
This is well, y'all pastors, this is my second closing.
You get two more.
Right.
So should pastors have a licensed mental health professional or on retainer for themselves and their leaders?
I think so.
I love that quick response, Pastor Kim.
I do. I think so. And not that I think so, I know so. I think it's so important because there are things that as a leader you can't share with even some of the leadership there. You got to be able to, talk it out. I think Dr. Thomas said it best. He went all the way to Italy, to get a
Yeah.
therapist to really walk him through the process. And I think it's so important that you find a therapist that is relatable, that is spiritual, but most of all, they got experience. I'm gonna be honest with you, there are people who've gone to college, but I need you to have a little experience. I need you to
Yeah.
be able to say, yes, I've been there. This is how I'm gonna help walk you through the process. So yeah, I think, and I don't think the pastor should have the same therapist as the congregation. That's just me. I feel like there's to be a distinct difference between the two.
Absolutely.
Dr.
I
Thomas.
agree. I agree as well. Short answer, I agree as well that you definitely need to have that accountability and that person who you can speak to, because I think that's the whole thing the devil plays with us all. He wants us to be secret. And I tell my boys this: the secrets you keep today is gonna haunt you tomorrow. So you might as well tell me what you did so you don't get haunted and can't sleep. Tell me the truth now. So I think, and that's the way we have to live as pastors. And I believe
Yeah.
if they have that accountability of somebody, and for me, it just happened to be out of, and I look, I grew up around women, not no, just no, I know I'm in a sea of women right now, but I felt like I needed a male therapist. But when she spoke to me, I was like, whoa, this is what I need. So I had to shift my perspective that, okay, this is what I was looking for, but actually she's giving me what I need. So I have to be able to do that. And I think pastors need to do that. And I think sometimes we get in fear and we feel like Pastor Kim said, that you probably need to have somebody outside of your congregation, definitely.
Yeah.
And even the people that I actually do therapy with, I don't invite them to my church. I want to keep that relationship with them where I
Right.
can do therapy with them and where I can keep that. And I will do therapy with some of the church members, but I always tell them to go out and find somebody, because I want to keep that professional relationship between the two, and I want to keep it separate. Yeah.
That's really good.
That's really good.
So before we close, if you would, I know I didn't ask you to prepare for this, but both of you, if you would just tell us the name of your church that you are pastoring, where people can find you if they would love to come and visit, and if there's anything that you have going on that you want to share with the general public. Either one of you.
You want me to go first, Dr. Thomas?
Pastor Kim.
All right, I go first. I pastor at St. Paul Full Gospel Baptist Church in Fayetteville, 602 Man Street. We have Kingdom Builders Institute at 8:45 on Sundays, and then at 9:30 we have morning worship. We do have 6 a.m. prayer on Wednesdays and 6:30 p.m. Bible study. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at St. Paul Full Gospel Baptist Church. And I think we have a YouTube channel, so you can follow us on YouTube as well. The biggest thing that we have coming up is in December. We are having the Poor Summit, and it's a time of prayer and gathering. And I am super excited because this is our first year holding prayer. I believe in prayer. I believe in the Institute of Prayer. Prayer has kept us these last 15 months. And so I'm super excited. And this will be in December. So we will have more information coming out soon. But it will be the first Saturday in December of this year at the church.
Thank you.
Yes.
Amen.
Dr. Thomas.
We are Christ Life Louisville. We're located at 853 Milton Street, right in the heart of Louisville, Kentucky. And you can find us at christlifeforlife.com, or you can find us on any social media at just Christ Life Louisville. The biggest thing I have coming up is that I have a book coming out. It's called Rejection Denied. Don't let rejection steal your DNA. Discover your divine nature assignment. And I'm coming up with a framework to help you to discover what that DNA in Christ is. What we have coming up, I have to talk about my wife's event that's coming up. It's not even in Louisville. It's in Baltimore. She does an event called Authenticated, and it will be in Baltimore, Maryland, and it will be October the 24th. And she's opening it up to the men. So I will be the first man speaker at Authenticated. It's been going on for about 4 years. So it's open up to anybody that wants to come. And you can go to getmypassport.com. Getmypassport.com, or you can visit the church as well at christlifelouisville.com.
Awesome. Thank you both. Wow. They're doing great things at both ministries, so I'm so happy. For those that didn't know, Pastor Kim went to UNC Charlotte with us, so she's a fellow 49er.
49ers.
Dr. Thomas is my cousin by marriage.
Okay.
So so I'm so excited. Thank you all for, again, imparting your wisdom, sharing your experience, and allowing us to step into your lives, your personal lives as pastors, and shedding some light for us, because we are not, in your shoes, but we are praying for you and your ministries. I do want to share some resources for pastors that are seeking help. Pastoral, these are all nonprofits. I don't know about the last one, but Pastoral Care Incorporated is a nonprofit that assists pastors. They have counselors, other resources available. Pastor's Friend Ministry. Let me say this disclaimer. I have never used their services. I don't know anyone who's used their services. I cannot make a recommendation on you going to use their services. Like any other therapist, a service that you use, you have to vet them for yourself. So back to the scheduled program. Serve is also another organization. Care for Pastors is an organization that assists pastors. Most of them all have counselors or can get you going in the right direction. They have various other resources. And then yourncs.org, which I believe is a North Carolina based organization that also helps pastors. I believe they also help new pastors with dealing with anxiety as they ministry. Wow. So what is your well, you gave information for your church, so you guys can Google, because I don't know that you want to give your personal information, contact information, but is there anything else that you guys want to add? Any takeaways, your final thoughts, or anything you want to share?
Dr. I just want to say, go ahead, Dr. Thomas.
I just wanted to say that I'm just grateful for being here, and I actually said my wife's email wrong, and if her website, she would get on me. So it's getmyeventpassport.com, getmyeventpassport.com. But no, I just want to say that I am honored to be here, and that you all would even think of me. Anything that I do for the kingdom, and when people think of me, I don't put no confidence in myself. It's all Jesus. I am really into just people really understanding who they are and what their ability is and pushing people forward. And so I thank you for the platform that you all have. Pastor Kim, it has been an honor to be a guest with you, and I am just appreciative of it all. And we got to do some stuff after this. All right, that's it. That's all.
Awesome. Yeah, so I agree with Dr. Thomas. It is an honor and a privilege. People don't have to ask you to do anything, and when they think of you, it is a very humbling experience. And I'm just grateful that even with Holly, Sweet, and Shanita, they've known me for over 20-some years. I think it's been 20 years, y'all.
Yeah.
20 years. And for them to see something in me speaks volumes. And I'm just grateful. And I just want want you guys to stay encouraged and to keep pushing and to keep doing what the Lord has assigned to your hands to do in this season. Mental health is real, but we will survive. We will overcome everything that will come our way. And so I'm just honored to be on a platform with an amazing man of God and didn't realize who you were. And when we come, I'm going to share I know you.
Oh, wow.
But
Oh.
it is yes. So it is my honor to serve with such an amazing man of God. And I know your wife. And so thank y'all again. Thank y'all for thinking a little old me from Rayford, North Carolina. I appreciate y'all.
Yay. Woo.
Holly, do you have anything you want to add?
What now? You
Do
said
you have
something?
anything you want to
Oh,
add? Anything away?
not really. I think the pastors have said it all. Yeah, definitely. If you are in need of resources, Shanita went down the line, definitely reach out, get help. I'm a believer that pastors should have pastors. So if that's the case, then you have someone there that you can reach out to. So hopefully, this episode provided some insight, gave some direction, and that's what we're here for. So that's it.
Yeah, I think no strenuous final thoughts outside of, I would say, I am a proponent of Jesus deliverance in therapy.
Amen.
Because sometimes you need deliverance.
This is
I
true.
think Dr. Anita Phillips said, prayer is a weapon, and therapy is a strategy.
She does say that a lot.
Good.
So I think my takeaway from all of this is we have to absolutely pray for our pastors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they are human, just like us. And we need prayer, and so do they.
Yeah.
Which is why we need to support them however God instructs us to. In prayer, physical, whatever it is, just being present for them, being a listening ear. Of course, pastors may not always share everything with members, but even if it's something simple, just be available as much as you can, or when the Lord tells you to. Because I know I have to be careful with what I say, because there are some ministries where some people will run you down to the ground. So, but that's another time. Anyway.
Oh, one last little interjection. Yeah. I don't know where that scripture is where it talks about being a joy for your pastor. I can't quote it, but that's another thing I just wanted to add in there. That would help with some of these mental health things. Is if the congregation would concentrate on being a joy versus being a burden to them. But I digress.
And that's how we gonna end this show.
Amen.
Be the joy.
Yes.
Be the joy.
And until next time, I hope you all are blessed. And we want to hear from you after you watch the episode. Pastors, we again are praying for you. Bye. Have a good one, y'all.
Bye.
Peace.